As we recognize the incredible innovators and change makers who are gathered here tonight, it is also important to acknowledge that the future that everybody here is creating isn't something that we can take for granted. In fact, the next few years are quite possibly going to be the most important in any of our lives as we confront what it's going to take to avoid the worst impacts of climate change, to halt and reverse biodiversity loss, and to advance a just and equitable climate transition. At TIME, we've been reporting on climate change for decades, and we've really seen an incredible amount of progress within that time. But while we've seen that progress and we've seen what we're capable of, we also know that there's a lot more work left to be done, and more leadership, more action and determination that is going to be necessary for us to be able to address the extent of this crisis. The question of if or when we need to do something about climate change is now obsolete. Climate change is here, and it's now. The question actually right now is, can we move fast enough to really implement the solutions that already exist and that we know are going to be necessary? And TIME has risen to that challenge. Earlier this year, TIME C02, which is the TIME's climate arm, celebrated the climate heroes who are tackling this urgent global issue head on, recognizing them during our first ever Earth Awards Gala. And so it feels fitting to honor a climate leader tonight, a man who was instrumental in the very creation of this award and who himself personally has helped enable and empower a whole generation of climate leaders. After 26 years in finance, Tom Steyer sold his stake in a hedge fund and dove straight into the fight of his life, pursuing his goal of solving the climate emergency with the same passion and tenacity that made him successful in the business world. He's also been a vocal champion of clean energy, and he's helped create laws to keep our air clean. He started an organization to promote youth voter turnout, which has really been the most successful initiative and campaign of its kind. He's donated significant amounts of funding to his alma maters to advance clean energy research. And he also started a climate investment platform to accelerate climate solutions and to stimulate ecopreneurship. Now, he hasn't just given his time, his money, and his effort. He's also gifted us with something perhaps even more powerful, inspiration. So please join me in welcoming 2023 Earth Award recipient, Tom Steyer.
So as a very imperfect person, I would like to say thank you. And I would also like to say that listening to the TIME 100 Next, I'd like to thank you for what you've done, what you're doing, and what you're going to do, because I can tell you that the rest of us are absolutely counting on you going forward to do the amazing things that you've been doing so far. Let me say, I am obsessed with climate statistics, and I'll try and keep it to a minimum, just to give you guys a sense of where we are about the race that Schuyler was talking about. So one of the big things that people say all the time about climate is we can't go through 1.5 C. Now, no one in the world, or at least in the United States, knows what 1.5 C is because we deal in Fahrenheit, not Celsius. And really, it makes no sense, but trust me, that's the big bogey. Just so you know, in September 2023, which was last month, we were 1.75 C above pre-industrial. So the thing that everyone's telling you, we can't go through this, we are well through it. So the numbers from the natural world, when we think about climate, all we're talking about is destroying the natural world and trying to measure it. We are through the measure of what the UN said we can't go through. So let's, not good. However, let me say this too. Most of the people in this room, I would bet, do not know that the transition to a more sustainable economy and a more sustainable world is going much faster and much better than you ever read in the paper. Just so you know, the way that revolutions happen in the economy, it looks like an S. It takes a long time of slow growth, and then it kind of goes vertical until you get to about 80%. So I'll give you one other statistic tonight. People believe that in 2030, 7 years from now, 80% of the cars sold globally will be EVs. 80%. So when you think about how this is going, that is going so much better in terms of deployment and new technologies. I was listening to a new technology today that can absolutely change the world. The thing that we all have to realize in this room is people are going to determine the outcome. Our choices, our behaviors, our values are going to determine what happens going forward. And let me just say, I personally believe we're in trouble and we're absolutely going to win. It's not going to be pretty. You know, I always say to people, it's like winning a boxing match. They hold your hand up at the end of 15 rounds and you've won, except you have no teeth left and there's blood all over your face. But we are going to win. But let me say this. There are a bunch of people in this world who don't agree. This is not like a kumbaya moment. In the last 2 weeks, 2 American oil companies have spent $112 billion betting that the transition in energy is to oil and gas. That's what those takeovers mean. That's 20 to 30 years where they believe we won't just be using oil and gas, we'll be using more oil and gas. And that the people who are trying to change the trajectory of our economy and our world are going to fail. That is exactly what they're saying. So my hope tonight, look, I loved looking around this room at people from such different backgrounds, such different talents, such different experience and knowledge bases getting to know each other, because this is an all of society answer. And so my hope is that you meet people and are inspired by people so that we can pull together all of society to answer this question in a good way. That is the only way that we're going to win. And let me say, I want the people in this room to be the ones who decide the future. I don't want it to be some oil man from Houston, Texas. So as far as I'm concerned for tonight, thank you very much to TIME. I'm very appreciative. Thank you to the people in this room who are doing so much in so many different ways. I just absolutely love it. But one other thing, let's kick their ass. Thank you.